And one of the things that I've talked about with other streamers is um, how horror has become prevalent. So we go. I know it's kind of a jump. We go from horror to comedy, and we saw this during the where while we were all trapped inside, due to unconstitutional lockdowns, horror films kind of became the norm. I know I watched a ton of horror, and it was just because I ran out of my favorite things to watch for my favorite genre. I remember I was so desperate to be entertained, I actually went back and watched TV shows that I didn't like, and I found newfound respect for them. Um, because of just the time. Well, I'm not a horror genre fan. I prefer thriller to horror, and I'm nothing against horror as a genre. It's just not my jam. And but I watched a ton of horror while we were all, like I said, under house arrest. So I am curious to why that is. Well, my good pal Christian Toto over in at HalloweenToto.com, um, I highly recommend his website. He does film, television commentary as well in the pop culture space. He's launching a podcast, and he has an article on on his website called "Why Horror Films," or excuse me, "Why Horror Movies Are Having a Moment," and he makes some good points. He talks about the Terrifier. He talks about Megan. He talks about X and Pearl. All these different horror movies that are doing good at the box office, or they might have been technically bombs, but they made enough to justify sequels. And I wanted to read his perspective because I thought it was really interesting what he had to say. So after listing a whole bunch of movies that did well during that time period, he says it starts with the nature of horror itself. We've all watched slasher films at home and shuddered over any unexpected sound. It's scary to watch a shocker at home alone and in a darkened den, no less. But there's still a singular experience. There's no one there to bond with, though, to feel a common sense of escalating dread. The movie theater offers the opposite. You're sitting in a sea of strangers, clutching your armrest while others are doing the same. You gasp out a jump scare, and a dozen people do the same, maybe more. That communal experience is why the theatrical model still matters. It can't be replicated at home, no matter how big your man cave might be. No one invites strangers into their home to watch a scary movie, but they'll happily sit with them to do just that at the local theater. And then when the film delivers, it's glorious. That's not the only reason for horror's healthy receipts. Horror films rarely rely on name actors to sell their scares. Yes, Megan most Get Out's alum Allison Williams, but her presence doesn't explain the film's box office might. Barbarian begins with two relatively fresh faces, Georgina Campbell and Bill Skarsgård, who hooked the audience from the jump. Smile didn't need an A-lister attached to the project. That creepy game plastered over the marketing plastering the marketing materials proves irresistible. Marquee actors never hurt, though when fans expect to see them shine and they're treated like an afterthought, and he uses Jamie Lee Curtis as an example for Halloween, the box office receipts droop accordingly. Plus, lesser known stars can't command the kind of salaries that balloon a film's budget even better. So he talks about this a little bit more. He says horror creatives are also more in touch with their fans. The horror community passionately supports genre legends and newbies alike. It's why Terrifier 2 creator Damien Leone's Twitter feed brims with an appreciation for the film's fan. Horror conventions keep that familiar spirit alive. And then he says, New Year, same results. The rest of 2023 promises a mix of new tales and old favorites. And he lists a few ones that are coming out. He mentions the Knock at the Cabin, the next Screen installment, and then he says this is how he concludes. He says the Cage Assance continues with Renfield, which seems like a potent blend of horror and comedy, and any film swiped from Stephen King's imagination, like the upcoming shocker The Boogeyman, gets horror films heart pumping. Film already has social media buzz, and it doesn't hit theaters until June 2nd. That film, originally bound for Hulu, will hit theaters instead. That's interesting. Smart. Otherwise, expect a flood of remakes. The Strangers, The Exorcist, and Salem's Lot, which will sink or swim based on their creative DNA, not merely name recognition. The one unsung force in horror's favor, Western culture is in obvious decline. Major institutions are no longer trustworthy, starting with the mainstream media. Farcical headlines are now the norm, and our court jesters lack the guts to mock them as they should. Inflation is high, optimism is low, and the future looks dim despite our smartphone distractions. Is it any wonder we're so eager to gather in the dark for a good old-fashioned scare? And this is true. I totally agree with Christian Toto there. One of the things that I've done recently is I've fallen into this rabbit hole of, true crime YouTube. Before I would watch true crime, on an app, like say Peacock or Tubi. Tubi should hire me. I freaking love Tubi, but I've been falling down it on in YouTube, sort of unsolved mystery type stuff, conspiracy theory even. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist on some things, but it is fun to hear, those stories, what it means for people, and it's very, it has been a new way for me to be entertained for that escapism. So I do see Christian Toto's point in this. Once again, he knocks it out of the park.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up, that you'll leave me a comment, tell me what you think, that you'll share it out with your friends, and of course, consider subscribing to StudioJake. I cover all kinds of nerd and pop culture topics, including film, television, anime, comic books, and so much more. I hope that you'll also head over to my main website, StudioJakeMedia.com, where I have even more news, views, and commentary. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, head over to my locals page. That's studiojakemedia.locals.com. It's the best way to support me. I'm trying to build a little community there. I have exclusive reviews and articles, so definitely head over there and check it out. And I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.